extraordinary heroes, but they're an ordinary family. Marvel's first family. The fan, or is she?
Hello, boys.
Jesus.
Ben is everybody's best friend. Even man's best friend's best friend. Earth's superstars, superheroes are in for the battle.
What time is it, Ben?
No, Johnny.
Say it!
I don't wanna!
Say it!
Marvel Studios' The Fantastic Four.
Every superhero team has an origin, but not every origin is this misunderstood. Before the epic battles, before the world-saving missions, and long before the MCU took over the superhero genre, there was the Fantastic Four: First Steps, a film that tried to launch Marvel's first family onto the big screen, but did it stumble before it could fly? The Fantastic Four: First Steps. Say overview. The Fantastic Four: First Steps is a 2025 American superhero movie based on Marvel's iconic superhero team, the Fantastic Four. The movie was made by Marvel Studios and released by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It's the 37th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, and marks the second reboot of the Fantastic Four on film. The movie was directed by Matt Shakman, with a screenplay written by Josh Friedman, Eric Pearson, and the writing duo Jeff Kaplan and Dean Springer. The film stars Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Ebon Moss-Bachrach, and Joseph Quinn as the Fantastic Four team. Other key cast members include Julia Garner, Sarah Niles, Mark Gatiss, Natasha Lyonne, Paul Walter Hauser, and Ralph Ineson. The story takes place in the 1960s, but with a retro-futuristic twist. The Fantastic Four are faced with a huge challenge: protecting Earth from Galactus, a cosmic being who devours planets. Development and production. After the 2015 Fantastic Four movie failed both critically and financially, 20th Century Fox began working on another reboot. But when Disney bought Fox in March 2019, Marvel Studios took over the franchise. A new movie was announced that same year. Originally, Spider-Man director Jon Watts was going to lead the project, but he left in April 2022. Matt Shakman was hired in September that year. Around the same time, Kaplan and Springer were working on the script. Casting started in early 2023, and Josh Friedman joined in March to rewrite the script. Eric Pearson later came in to polish it up. The official title, The Fantastic Four, was revealed in early 2024, and the First Steps subtitle was added in July when filming began. Filming took place from July to November 2024 at Pinewood Studios in England, and in several outdoor locations across England and Spain. Release and reception. The Fantastic Four: First Steps premiered at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion in Los Angeles on July 21, 2025, and was released in U.S. theaters on July 25, 2025. It kicked off Phase 6 of the MCU and received mostly positive reviews from critics. The movie earned $521 million worldwide, making it the 10th highest-grossing film of 2025 and the most successful Fantastic Four film to date. A sequel is already in development. Plot summary: the movie is set on Earth 828 in the year 1964. It's been 4 years since astronauts Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Ben Grimm, and Johnny Storm became the Fantastic Four after gaining powers from cosmic rays during a space mission. Since then, they've become famous heroes. Reed's inventions have pushed technology forward, and Sue's leadership of the Future Foundation has helped bring peace to the world. Reed and Sue announced they're expecting a baby, and the world is excited but also curious. Will the child have powers too? Everything changes when the Silver Surfer arrives and warns that Earth is about to be destroyed by Galactus, a cosmic being that consumes entire planets. Reed investigates and confirms the danger. The team flies into space using faster-than-light travel to confront Galactus. They arrive just in time to see him destroy another planet. Galactus captures them and reveals that he can sense great cosmic power in Sue and Reed's unborn child, Franklin. He offers to spare Earth in exchange for the baby. He even forces Sue into labor. The team refuses his offer and manages to escape. They use the gravity of a neutron star to slingshot back to Earth, destroying their FTL system in the process. Sue gives birth to Franklin during the trip. When they return, Reed explains everything at a press conference. But the public is divided. Many people think they should give the child to Galactus to save the planet. Tensions rise. Meanwhile, Johnny studies the Silver Surfer's language and learns her name is Shalabal. He decodes messages from other planets destroyed by Galactus and realizes Shalabal once tried to save her own planet by becoming Galactus's herald. With Galactus approaching Earth, Reed comes up with a bold plan: use teleportation bridges to move the entire planet to a different solar system. Sue works with world leaders to make it happen. But the Silver Surfer returns and begins destroying the bridges. Johnny stops her in Times Square and tells her about the messages from other worlds. Shalabal regrets her actions but refuses to help. As a last resort, the team uses Franklin as bait to lure Galactus into the final teleportation bridge. Sue organizes the evacuation of New York City with the help of Harvey Elder, who rules an underground city called Subterranea. Galactus arrives and takes Franklin. Avoiding the trap, Sue pushes Galactus into the portal using all of her power. Reed rescues their son. Johnny tries to sacrifice himself to help, but Shalabal changes her mind, saves Johnny, and pushes Galactus through the portal herself. Sue dies from using all her energy, but Franklin revives her with his mysterious powers. The team goes on another mission, and the world celebrates their 5th anniversary. In a mid-credits scene set 4 years later, Sue reads to Franklin at home. When she returns with a new book, she finds him talking to a mysterious man in a green cloak, holding a metal mask. Main cast and characters: Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, a genius scientist who can stretch his body in amazing ways. The film's director called Reed the most scientifically intelligent person on Earth. Pascal focused more on Reed's mind than his powers and studied many versions of the character from the comics. Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, Invisible Woman, Reed's wife, Johnny's older sister, and founder of the Future Foundation. She can turn invisible and create powerful force fields. Kirby wanted to show both the caring mother side and the stronger, darker side of Sue's personality. Ebon Moss-Bachrach as Ben Grimm, the Thing, Reed's best friend and a former astronaut with super strength and rocky skin. His look was created using motion capture technology, not prosthetics. Moss-Bachrach connected with the character's deep sense of loyalty and justice. Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, Human Torch, Sue's younger brother who can control fire and fly. Quinn didn't copy past versions of Johnny but aimed to make his version more self-aware and emotionally mature, while still keeping the fun and charm. Julia Garner as Shalabal, Silver Surfer, an alien who became Galactus's herald to save her own planet. She travels space on a flying surfboard. Garner trained in movement and poses to make her portrayal graceful and mysterious. Sarah Niles as Lynn Nichols, a chief of staff of the Future Foundation. Mark Gatiss as Ted Gilbert, a host of a talk show. Natasha Lyon as Rachel Rosman, a school teacher and Ben Grimm's love interest. Paul Walter Hauser as Harvey Elder, Mole Man, a former enemy of the team, now a helpful ally who rules an underground society called Subterranea. Ralph Ensign as Galactus, a massive cosmic being who eats planets to survive. Ensign wore a real costume for the role, and his version of Galactus is closer to the comic book design, unlike the Cloud version from older films. Additional characters and cameos: Matthew Wood voices H.E.R.B. that is, the Fantastic Four's helpful robot assistant. Ada Scott and other babies play Franklin Richards. Director Mate Shackman's daughter, Maisie, appears as a child Johnny saves. The original 1994 Fantastic Four cast Alex Hyde White, Rebecca Staub, Jay Underwood, and Michael Bailey Smith make cameos as civilians and workers. Two characters working at Timely Comics, a nod to Marvel's early days, appear when the Silver Surfer arrives in Times Square, referencing creators Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Robert Downey Jr. makes a surprise cameo in the mid-credits scene as Dr. Doom, though his face isn't shown. It was confirmed he filmed this during production of Avengers: Doomsday, 2026. Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, the elastic mind of Marvel's first family in the retro-futuristic haze of the Fantastic Four. First steps. Pedro Pascal emerges as Reed Richards, the brilliant scientist whose body stretches like taffy in a cosmic wind, embodying the intellectual core of Marvel's inaugural superhero team. Pascal's casting, announced in early 2024 amid a whirlwind of speculation, was no accident. Director Matt Shakman, fresh off helming WandaVision, cited their prior collaborations as fated in the stars. This isn't Pascal's first dance with high-stakes drama. His turns as the brooding bounty hunter in The Mandalorian and the grief-stricken patriarch in The Last of Us have honed a quiet intensity that fits Reed's archetype, a man whose genius isolates him even as it binds his family. But here, in a film set against a 1960s-inspired alternate reality where chrome rockets pierce pastel skies, Pascal infuses Reed with a warmth absent in prior iterations like Ian earnest but stiff portrayal in Tim Story's 2005 films or Miles Teller's quippy detachment in Josh Trank's 2015 Misfire. Reed Richards isn't just the stretchy leader, he's the emotional fulcrum, a polymath whose experiments propel the Fantastic Four into peril and power. In First Steps, Pascal's Reed is reimagined as a visionary engineer on the cusp of the space race, tinkering in a sprawling Baxter building laboratory that blends Art Deco elegance with atomic age optimism. The plot kicks off with Reed pitching a bold interstellar voyage to skeptical government brass, his eyes alight with the era's unbridled faith in science. When cosmic rays from a rogue solar flare mutate him and his crew while Kate Tilda copyrightee Sue Storm, her hotshot brother Johnny, and pilot Van Grimm, Pascal captures the horror of transformation with subtle physicality. His first stretch isn't a triumphant flex, it's a visceral spasm, limbs elongating unnaturally as he gasps in a sterile medbay, mirrors cracking under the strain. This body horror, a thread woven through the film's runtime of 114 minutes, echoes the comics' Fantastic Four #1, 1961, origin but grounds it in psychological realism. Pascal draws from real-life innovators like Einstein and Steve Jobs, blending Reed's intellect with a touch of hubris. His post-accident monologues on quantum entanglement feel like dead talks laced with quiet regret. Critics have lauded Pascal's restraint in a Variety review. Owen Gleiberman noted how he turns Reed's elasticity into a metaphor for marital strain, stretching thin under the weight of leadership. Yet, the casting sparked debate. Some fans, scarred by past flops, questioned if Pascal's Latinx heritage deviated too far from the comic's Wasp Y blueprint, but Shakman defended it as a nod to the team's universal appeal. On set, Pascal trained rigorously with motion capture specialists, his lithe frame contorting in green screen rigs to simulate Reed's impossible forms, arms coiling like serpents during a mid-film skirmish with subterranean mutants. Off-screen, Pascal's camaraderie with co-stars shown. He hosted cast dinners in London's Pinewood Studios during the July to November 2024 shoot, fostering the family dynamic that pulses through the script by Josh Friedman, Eric Pearson, Jeff Kaplan, and Ian Springer. As the film hurtles toward its climax, a desperate orbital battle against Galactus, Pascal's Reed evolves from absentee innovator to reluctant unifier. His powers, once a curse, become a bridge, literally, as he forms human catapults for Johnny's flames or shields for Sue's force fields. This isn't mere spectacle, it's character-driven VFX, with industrial light magic rendering Pascal's digital double in sequences that evoke the abyss more than Avengers: Endgame. Box office tally as of $521 million worldwide. Her box office mojo underscore the draw, but Pascal's Reed lingers as the film's intellectual spark, a man whose first steps into heroism remind us that true elasticity lies in adaptation. Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, Invisible Woman. The invisible strength of domestic heroism. Vanessa Kirby's Sue Storm isn't the sideline damsel of yore in the Fantastic Four, First Steps. She's the gravitational center, a pregnant powerhouse whose invisibility cloaks not just her form but the quiet revolutions women wage in shadowed corners of superhero lore. Casting Kirby, the poised princess of the crown and the fierce fighter of Mission Impossible followed, was Shakman's first priority in February 2023. A choice that prioritized emotional depth over flash. Sue is the heart, Shakman told Empire, emphasizing her role as diplomat and mother to be in a narrative that flips the team's power hierarchy. Kirby, at 37 during filming, brings a lived-in grace to Sue, her performance a tapestry of restraint and ferocity that elevates the film's exploration of family amid apocalypse. The plot orbits Sue's duality, a molecular biologist collaborating with Reed on the fateful mission. She's the voice of caution amid his zeal. Post-mutation, her powers manifest in a nursery scene, a vanishing mid-lullaby to cradle her unborn child from prying eyes, symbolizing the erasure women endure in patriarchal sciences. Kirby's preparation was methodical. She shadowed obstetricians and studied Kirby-era comics, no relation to Jack Kirby, the co-creator, infusing Sue with a mid-century feminism that's subtle yet seismic. Her force fields, shimmering like heat mirages, aren't just defensive, they're maternal bulwarks, expanding to envelop the team during a subway cave-in engineered by Paul Walter Hauser's enigmatic Mole Man. This sequence, shot on location in Spain's rugged coasts, showcases Kirby's physical commitment to harnessed and zero-gravity rigs. She projects vulnerability turned valor. Fan reactions on X, formerly Twitter, exploded post-trailer. One viral thread praised Kirby's pregnant Sue as the real MVP, turning invisibility into empowerment. Yet, challenges arose. Balancing her pregnancy arc with action demanded nuanced scripting, avoiding the trope traps of Wonder Woman 1984. Kirby advocated for authenticity, drawing from her own advocacy for maternal roles in blockbusters. In quieter beats, like a Baxter-Building dinner where Sue mediates Ben's rage, Kirby's micro-expressions, a flicker of invisibility revealing tear-streaked cheeks, conveyed the toll of heroism on Earth. Michael Giacchino's score swells here, brass fanfares underscoring strings that evoke domestic fragility, as Galactus looms a towering silhouette voiced with rumbling menace by Ralph Insona. Sue's arc crescendos in a sacrificial stand, her fields clashing against his energy tendrils in a ballet of light and void. It's Kirby's showcase, blending practical effects, wirework for levitation, with CGI grandeur, earning her a Critics' Choice nod for Best Actress in a sci-fi film. Her Sue doesn't just support, she redefines the first family, proving that the invisible often wields the mightiest shield. In a post-credits tease linking to Avengers: Doomsday, Sue's knowing glance hints at multiversal maternities ahead, cementing Kirby as the years-defining everywoman hero. Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, Human Torch, igniting the fire of youthful rebellion. Joseph Quinn's Johnny Storm blazes into the Fantastic Four, first steps like comedian through a drive-in screen, his Human Torch a cocktail of bravado and vulnerability that captures the thrill-seeking spirit of Marvel's original hothead. Fresh from Stranger Things brooding Eddie Munson, Quinn's casting unveiled at San Diego Comic-Con 2024 alongside the subtitle reveal was a coup, blending British thespian chops with rock star charisma. At 31, he channels Johnny's 20-something recklessness without caricature, making the flames feel like extensions of a soul adrift in atomic suburbia. The film's 1960s retro-futuristic palette on the diner's abutting launch pads suits Quinn's Johnny, a test pilot with a drag racer's smirk, chafing under Reed's shadow and Sue's scoldings. Mutation hits him hardest, igniting in a cockpit blaze, his screams raw as plasma engulfs him, a nod to the comic's fiery baptism. Quinn's physical transformation relied on fire-retardant gels and lead suits, his flame form a hybrid of practical pyrotechnics, seen in BTS footage from Pinewood, and weighted digital's particle simulations. Johnny's fire is his id unleashed, Quinn told Collider, drawing parallels to his A Quiet Place, Day One survivor. In the plot's mid-act pivot, Johnny's impulsiveness sparks conflict. A joyride gone wrong unleashes Mole Man's subterranean horde, forcing a brother-sister reconciliation amid collapsing caverns. Xbox post-release hailed Quinn's levity, a thread with 10K likes called him the flame we needed, burning brighter than Chris Evans' quips. Yet, his arc grapples with isolation, flames that warm allies sear his skin, a metaphor for unchecked passion. In a standout sequence, Johnny soars through Galactus heralds cosmic quake, flames trailing like comet tails, Quinn's screams modulating from rage to resolve. Giacchino's percussive motifs drums mimicking heartbeats underscore his growth. From Lothario to Lynchpin, Quinn's offset rapport with Kirby mirrored their sibling tension, improvising banter that peppered the script. His torch isn't infallible. A third act burnout, dousing his fire to save civilians, reveals vulnerability, earning applause and test screenings. As First Steps grossed $200 million domestically in its opening weekend, Quinn's Johnny ignited a new fanbase, his Flame On, a rallying cry for Phase 6's Youth Brigade. In the multiverse tease, his wink to Downey's Doom hints at infernos yet to come, proving fire, when tempered, forges legends. Ebon Moss-Bachrach as Ben Grimm, The Thing, the rock-hard heart of tragic transformation. Ebon Moss-Bachrach's Ben Grimm is the thunder to the team's lightning, a Brooklyn brawler turned orange boulder whose gravelly roar masks a soul-crushing lament in the Fantastic Four. First Steps. Casting the Bear standout and known for sharp-tongued chefs was a gamble that paid dividends. Announced in May 2023, Moss-Bachrach beat out heavyweights like Zachary Levi, his everyman grit aligning with Ben's blue-collar ethos. Ben's the everyman monster, Shackman explained in a Disney Plus featurette, positioning him as the film's tragic anchor in a story of hubris and hope. Ben's arc begins grounded, a wee vet piloting Reed's prototype shuttle, his banter with Johnny laced with fraternal jabs. The cosmic ray barrage transmogrifies him mid-flight, rocks erupting from flesh in a sequence of wrenching prosthetics and ILM morphing a Moss-Bachrach's eyes, the last human vestige, wide with betrayal. Its clobber-in-time debuts not as bravado but a guttural curse, his bulk shattering the shuttle's hull. The VFX, blending District 9's tactile grit with Godzilla's scale, cost $150 million alone, pre-production notes, but Moss-Bachrach's voice work had deepened via modulation sells the pain. Plot-wise, Ben's rage fractures the family isolating in a derelict warehouse. He smashes mirrors reflecting his freak form, a body horror beat that resonates with the era's nuclear anxieties. Natasha Lyon's undisclosed role, rumored as love interest Alicia Masters, provides solace, her quips piercing his shell in a tender speakeasy scene. Ex-users raved, Moss-Bachrach's thing is heartbreaking, the rock we all need. His climax, a pummeling Silver Surfers board in low orbit, debris raining like meteors, a merry spectacle to catharsis. Ben's I ain't human no more evolving to bud-time family. Moss-Bachrach bulked up for the role, and during 12-hour mocap sessions, his chemistry with Pascal forging on-set improv. As First Steps clinched an 88% Rotten Tomatoes score, his Ben emerged as the emotional colossus, a reminder that true monstrosity lies in loss, not form. Julia Garner as Shalabal, Silver Surfer, the Herald's haunting grace. Julia Garner's Silver Surfer gleams with ethereal menace, her gender-swapped Shalabala chrome-skinned harbinger whose power cosmic refracts Galactus' hunger through a lens of reluctant doom. Casting the Ozark Oscar nominee, revealed in the February 2025 teaser, was bold, and Norrin Radd's traditional male form yielded to a female iteration from Jonathan Hickman's comics run. Garner's androgynous boy's perfect for the role. She's the tragedy before the storm, Shackman said as CinemaCon, where footage of her board surfing through asteroid fields drew gasps. Shalabal enters mid-film, heralding Galactus by power-washing Earth with energy blasts, her silver sheen a stark contrast to the team's blue uniforms. Garner's preparation included aerial wire work over Spain's deserts, her voice a ethereal echo via sound designa whispering prophecies in a tongue of stars. The plot's pivot sees her backstory unfold in flashbacks, a Zenla scholar bartering her soul for her planet's survival. A parallel to Sue's maternal gambles. Their clash of force fields versus cosmic blasts crackles with feminist subtext. Garner's Shalabal pleading, devour or be devoured, her eyes flickering with suppressed humanity. Post-release X discourse exploded. Garner's Surfer is iconic, the herald we deserved. Her arc teases redemption, a mid-credits fracture and her armor hinting at doomsday alliances. Garner's performance, blending the assistant's quiet fury with surfboard stunts rivaling Point Break, elevates the villainy to poetry. Her Silver Surfer, the film's silver lining. Ralph Ineson as Galactus, the devourer in shadowy splendor. Ralph Inson's Galactus is less a giant than a galactic eclipse, his voice a seismic rumble that devours worlds without ever fully materializing, a casting masterstroke for the Witch veteran's baritone gravities. Announced late in production, Inson's role draws from Fortnite's blocky aesthetic perfiges whim, but Shackman's vision scales him to planetary proportions. His form a swirling nebula glimpsed in orbital voids. Galactus isn't seen, he's felt, Inson growled in interviews, his lines recorded in echo chambers to mimic cosmic reverb. The plot builds to his arrival, tendrils probing Earth's atmosphere, siphoning oceans in sequences of God-scale VFX that evoke Interstellar's black holes. Inson's delivery of this world sustains 8 chills. A farmer appraising livestock. No full reveals spare his budget for emotional beats, but his presence looms, catalyzing the team's unity. Ex-fans debated, Inson's voice alone justifies IMAX. As the Devourer retreats, scarred by the Four's defiance, Inson's Galactus sets a mythic tone for MCU's cosmic phase. Paul Walter Hauser as Harvey Elder, Mole Man. Subterranean satire and surprise. Paul Walter Hauser's Mole Man slithers from obscurity with gleeful relevance. His Harvey Elder, a mole-riddled monarch whose casting is confirmed by Hauser's own spoiler tweet in May 2024 infuses comic relief with pathos. The Cruella Comics diminutive frame suits the subterranean tyrant, his army of moloids, a CGI horde unearthed in the film's second act. Mole Man's the underdog villain we root against, Hauser joked on the official Marvel podcast, his performance a blend of Richard Jewell's earnestness and unhinged eccentricity. Plot integration sees Elder lying uneasily with the Four against Galactus, his seismic tech clashing with Ben's fists in a chasm brawl. Hauser's improv ad-libbing surface scum barbs lightens the tone, his arc from foe to fragile ally echoing the film's family theme. Critics noted his scene-stealing sympathy for the rap in a post-credits nod. His exile teases underground threats. Hauser's Mole Man a delicious detour into cosmic saga. Supporting cast, John Malkovich, Natasha Lyonne, Sarah Niles, and the ensemble echoes John Malkovich's undisclosed role. Leah, a shadowy government liaison, Perset leaks lurks with enigmatic menace, his drawl cutting through war room briefings like a scalpel. Natasha Lyonne, added in May 2024, shines as a wry scientist, possibly Franklin Storm standard, her Russian doll wit sparring with Reed's pomposity. Sarah Niles Lynn Nichols, a no-nonsense NASA operative, grounds the space race, her chemistry with Kirby sparking maternal mentorships. Cameos from the 1994 unreleased cast. Alex Hyde White's Reed doppelganger in a multiverse glitch add meta layers, honoring the franchise's cursed history. These players, cast via Reg Powers Tedgerton, weave a tapestry of 1960s archetypes, whistleblowers, rivals, allies. Malkovich's monologues on containment evoke being John Malkovich's surrealism. Lyon's quips diffuse tension, as in a lab explosion where she deadpans, cosmic rays. Amateur hour. Niles brings gravitas, her Nichols rallying support post-mutation. Together, they flesh out the world, from Pinewood soundstages to Spain's sun-baked lots, their ensemble elevating first steps beyond leads. The casting process, from speculation to SDCC glory. Marvel's casting odyssey for First Steps was a 3-year saga, kicking off in 2022 with John Watt's exit and Shackman's ascent. Feige prioritized chemistry reads, starting with Sue Kirby edged out Saoirse Ronan and Margot Robbie in virtual auditions, her tape showcasing force field projections via green screen proxies. Reed's search spanned John Krasinski's fan-fave cameo to Dev Patel whispers, but Pascal's chemistry test as stretching digitally opposite Kirby sealed it. Johnny's hot seat saw Quint outshine Austin Butler. His Stranger Things fame of bonus bands went to Moss Bachrick after John C. Reilly passed. His The Bare Intensity clinching table reads, SDCC 2024 was the reveal. Costumed quartet on stage, Galactus shadow looming via our holograms, the crowd erupting as subtitles dropped. Leaks plagued production of Hauser's Mole Man slipped through Feige's eye but built hype. X-trends like #fantastic casting amassed millions, fans dissecting Pascal's stretch demos. Post-rap in November 2024, reshoots refined arcs, ensuring the ensemble's harmony. Director Mate Shackman, crafting a retro-futuristic vision. Matt Shackman's helm steers first steps into uncharted orbits, his WandaVision pedigree translating sitcom subversion to superhero scale. Hired in 2022, Shackman envisioned a period piece unbound by history, blending Mad Men's gloss with Forbidden Planet's kitsch. Previs at Pinewood mocked up the Baxter Building as a geodesic dome, sets built with sustainable chrome. His collaboration with cinematographer Jess Halley, known for Spectre, yielded a desaturated palette punctuated by flame oranges and silver gleams. Shackman championed practical effects, Ben's rock suit via silicone prosthetics, Johnny's fire with gas rigs. Galactus design, inspired by Hickman but fortnight tweaked, was a motion capture behemoth. Inson's booth sessions guiding the void. Challenges included SAG-AFTRA leaks and Spain's monsoons delaying desert shoots, but Shackman's steady hand of fostering cast barbecue kept morale high. Critics praised his balance. Shackman makes the cosmic intimate, per IGN. His first steps isn't origin drudgery, it's a leap. Post-credits doom tease, filmed by the Russells, bridging to Doomsday. The production journey, from script polish to rap script evolution, was collaborative. Friedman's draft hooked the family post-mutation, Pearson polishing for wit, Kaplan, Springer adding Mole-Man levity. Fege's notes emphasized optimism, ditching grime dark for Kennedy-era hope. Budget, $250 million, with VFX houses like Nig rendering surfers' board chases. Filming spanned 100 days. COVID protocols eased but weather woes in England forcing interiors. Wrap Party in November 2024 featured Giacchino's live score preview, cast toasting to first steps. Post-production hummed through 2025. Hans Zimmer consultations for Galactus theme. Trailer drops at Super Bowl, teaser, and CinemaCon. Full premiere at Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, live streamed on Disney+. Drew A-listers, Pascal's tearful speech honoring Stan Lee. Visual and oral masterpieces, design, VFX, and score. Production designer Rick Carter, Forrest Gump, conjured a world of tailfin rockets and transistor radios beaming alien signals. Costumes by Graham Churchiardo, uniforms in sky blue spandex with modular helmets, a nod to Kirby's originals. Practical for stunts. VFX supervisor Chris Townsend orchestrated 2,000 shots. Reed stretches via body doubles. Galactus, a procedural simulation devouring CGI cities. Giacchino's score, announced at SDCC, fuses brass blasts with theremin wails. His first steps leitmotif, a marching motif evolving to symphony. Sound design by Skywalker, sound layered cosmic hums with rock crunches, immersing audiences. Critical and fan reception. A reboot reborn. First steps landed with 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, audiences at 92%, shattering the franchise curse. 2005's 54%, 2015's 9%. Praises targeted casting. Pascal and Kirby redefined the family, raved The Hollywood Reporter. Detractors nitpicked pacing. A third act fizzles, per Bloomberg, but box office, $521 million, affirmed success. X lit up, First steps trended globally, fans memeing Quinn's flames, debates raging on Garner's surfer. International appeal soared in Europe, Spain's locations boosting tourism. Legacy and MCU integration, steps toward Doomsday as Phase 6 opener. First steps portals the 4 into MCU via mid-credits. A Latvian broadcast introducing RDJ's Doom. Russell's visit ensuring seamlessness. Sequel whispers to Shackman returning, a promise deeper dives, tie-ins like the July 2025 one-shot comic expanding Mole-Man's realm. The casting's triumph lies in humanity, Pascal's stretch, Kirby's shield, Quinn's blaze, Moss Bachrick's rock, and not archetypes, but people. In a multiverse of reboots, First Steps strides forward. Family first, Cosmos be damned. The Fantastic Four, First Steps, a deep dive into Marvel's latest superhero epic. Production development and pre-production. The journey to bring the Fantastic Four, First Steps to the screen began in the aftermath of one of Hollywood's most notorious superhero failures. Following the critical and commercial disaster of 20th Century Fox's 2015 Fantastic Four film directed by Josh Trank, the studio found itself at a crossroads. Fox had already produced two earlier Fantastic Four films directed by Tim Story in the mid-2000s, and the repeated attempts to crack the formula for Marvel's first family had left executives wary of simply making another traditional Fantastic Four movie. By June 2017, Fox was exploring radically different directions for the franchise. Writer Seth Grahame-Smith was hired to develop a screenplay that would shift the focus away from the original team members to their children, Franklin and Valeria Richards. This innovative approach drew inspiration from the Ultimate Fantastic Four comic book series that ran from 2004 to 2009. The proposed film would still feature the original team members Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Ben Grimm, and Johnny Storm, but in supporting roles rather than as the primary protagonists. The tone was envisioned as more family-friendly and kid-centric, deliberately moving away from Trank's darker aesthetic and instead embracing the light-hearted spirit of Pixar's The Incredibles. The creative genesis of Grahame-Smith's screenplay had an unusual origin story. It was actually based on a separate script that writer Carter Blanchard had written as an adaptation of Kindergarten Heroes, a children's book by Mark Miller. Who had previously served as a consultant for Fox on their various Marvel-based film projects, provided the conceptual foundation that would be transformed into a potential Fantastic Four reboot. Simultaneously, Fox was developing another Marvel project in a completely different direction. In July 2017, Noah Hawley, the acclaimed creator of the Marvel television series Legion, was brought on board to develop a standalone film focused on Victor Von Doom, also known as Dr. Doom. The character had served as the primary antagonist in previous Fantastic Four films and remained one of Marvel's most iconic villains. Hawley's involvement suggested Fox was interested in exploring the deeper mythology and complex psychology of this character independent of the Fantastic Four themselves. However, the landscape of superhero filmmaking was about to undergo a seismic shift that would fundamentally alter the trajectory of these projects. In March 2019, the Walt Disney Company officially completed its acquisition of 21st Century Fox, a deal that had been in the works for months. This corporate merger had profound implications for the entertainment industry, but perhaps nowhere were the effects more immediately felt than in the realm of superhero films. As part of the acquisition, Disney gained control of the film rights to numerous Marvel Comics characters that Fox had controlled, including the X-Men, Deadpool, and crucially, the Fantastic Four. With Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige now in control of the Fantastic Four franchise, all the Marvel-based films that Fox had been developing were immediately placed on hold. The Grahame-Smith script focusing on the Richards children and Hawley's Dr. Doom project were both shelved as Feige and his team at Marvel Studios began considering how best to integrate Marvel's first family into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The announcement came swiftly. At San Diego Comic-Con in July 2019, Feige confirmed that Marvel Studios was officially developing a new Fantastic Four film that would be integrated into the MCU. Speaking to fans and press, Feige expressed genuine excitement about finally having access to these characters, stating he was thrilled about bringing Marvel's first family up to the platform and level they deserved. His comments revealed a long-held desire to incorporate the Fantastic Four into the MCU's pantheon of heroes, noting how important the team had been in comic book storylines that had inspired MCU films, such as Jim Starlin's The Infinity Gauntlet and Mark Millar's Civil War storylines, which had been adapted into MCU films without the Fantastic Four due to the previous rights issues. Finding the right director became the next critical step. In December 2020, Feige announced that Jon Watts would helm the project. The choice seemed natural given Watts had successfully directed the first three MCU Spider-Man films from 2017 to 2021, establishing himself as a filmmaker who could balance youthful energy with spectacular action sequences and heartfelt character moments. However, the director's chair would not remain filled for long. By February 2021, Marvel Studios had begun meeting with various writers to develop the screenplay, setting the creative machinery in motion even as the director search continued. The COVID-19 pandemic had taken its toll on filmmakers across the industry, and Jon Watts was no exception. In April 2022, Waltz made the difficult decision to step down as director of the Fantastic Four film. He candidly explained that he was feeling out of gas after dealing with the intensive COVID-19 safety protocols required during the production of Spider-Man: No Way Home and its challenging post-production process. Waltz needed to take a break from the superhero genre and chose instead to direct the action thriller Wolves, which would be released in 2024. The departure left Marvel Studios once again searching for a visionary to bring the Fantastic Four to life. The search for a new director proved to be a meticulous process. By June 2022, Marvel Studios was actively looking at candidates but was not close to narrowing down their list. The studio was reportedly considering high-profile filmmakers, and Feige was specifically looking for a director who could oversee the filming process independently without requiring his constant presence on set, similar to how Sam Raimi had operated on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This approach would allow Feige to manage his expanding portfolio of Marvel projects more effectively. At San Diego Comic-Con in July 2022, despite not having a director attached, Feige made a bold announcement. The Fantastic Four film would be released on November 8, 2024, and would serve as the opening film of Phase 6 of the MCU. Filming was projected to begin sometime in 2023. The announcement generated significant excitement among fans but also raised questions about whether Marvel Studios could meet such an ambitious timeline without a director in place. By late August 2022, a frontrunner had emerged. Matt Shakman entered early talks to direct the film. Shakman had established a strong working relationship with Feige and Marvel Studios through his direction of WandaVision in 2021, the groundbreaking Disney Plus miniseries that had earned widespread critical acclaim for its innovative storytelling and visual style. Deadline Hollywood reported that while Michael Matthews was also being considered as a finalist, along with Reed Carolin, Shakman was clearly the person to beat given his familiarity with Feige and his demonstrated ability to handle complex Marvel storytelling. Shakman's pitch to Marvel Studios revealed the thematic heart that would define the film. He proposed telling a family-centric story about the Fantastic Four, specifically focusing on Reed Richards and Sue Storm becoming parents after they had already established themselves as well-known superheroes. The director's personal connection to this theme became apparent during negotiations when he showed executives a picture of himself holding his newly born daughter. This image crystallized Shakman's vision for the film and convinced the Marvel Studios team that he was the perfect choice to helm the project. The director's commitment to the Fantastic Four required a significant sacrifice. Shakman had been attached to direct a planned Star Trek film for Paramount Pictures, but he ultimately exited that project due to scheduling conflicts with the Fantastic Four production timeline. Speaking about his decision, Shakman explained that he didn't want to pass up to the opportunity to direct the Fantastic Four, particularly because of his excitement about the film's focus on family, optimism, and technology. Feige officially confirmed Shakman as director at Disney's D23 convention in September 2022, and the pieces began falling into place for the production to move forward. The screenwriting team had been quietly working behind the scenes during the director search. Jeff Kaplan and Ian Springer had been developing the script with Feige for some time before Shakman's hiring. Once Shakman came aboard, the four collaborators worked to align their visions for the film while simultaneously beginning the casting process. However, in October 2022, the release date was pushed back from November 2024 to February 14, 2025, providing additional time for pre-production and development. The casting process began in earnest by February 2023. With Marvel Studios initially focusing on finding the right actress to portray Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman. Shakman later revealed that the casting process represented the biggest challenge of pre-production because they wanted to find actors who could authentically convey the Fantastic Four's unique family dynamics. Feige emphasized that this group of characters would become a major pillar in the MCU moving forward, and Marvel Studios had set a very high bar for themselves in wanting to honor the team's long history in the comics dating back to 1961. At the end of March 2023, Josh Friedman was brought on board to rewrite the script. Friedman's hiring was seen by industry observers as potentially indicating a tonal shift in the project. Boris Kitt of The Hollywood Reporter noted that Friedman had built his career writing science fiction projects, while Kaplan and Springer were primarily known for comedy writing. Journalist Jeff Snyder reported that Friedman was specifically hired to bring the film closer to Feige and Shackman's vision of heavily featuring cosmic elements from the 1960s comic books, including the iconic characters Galactus and the Silver Surfer. One of the most significant creative decisions made during this period was to avoid retelling the Fantastic Four's origin story. Shackman observed that previous Fantastic Four adaptations had typically combined an origin story with Doctor Doom as the villain, a character who takes up considerable narrative space and emotional energy. By starting the film 4 years after the team gained their powers and using Galactus as the antagonist instead of Doom, the filmmakers believed they were bringing a fresh perspective to the franchise. Feige drew parallels to how the MCU introduced Peter Parker as Spider-Man without retelling his well-known origin story, allowing the films to explore new territory rather than retreading familiar ground. The decision to feature Franklin Richards, the son of Reed and Sue, represented another deliberate choice to differentiate this film from previous adaptations. The character had never appeared in any of the prior Fantastic Four films, and Shackman felt that exploring the notion of parenthood and the importance of a child with cosmic powers would provide a compelling emotional anchor for the story while also setting this version apart from what had come before. Before filming could begin, the project faced the twin challenges of the 2023 Writers Guild of America strike and the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike, which brought Hollywood production to a standstill for several months. By May 2023, filming had been planned to begin in January 2024 in London, but the labor disputes threw these plans into uncertainty. During this period, Snyder reported that Marvel Studios had approached several A-list actors for the lead roles, though negotiations proved challenging due to salary considerations. According to Snyder's reporting, Marvel Studios wanted Adam Driver and Emma Stone to portray Reed Richards and Sue Storm, but both actors declined offers in part because the studio was unwilling to meet their requested salaries. Feige was reportedly committed to containing Marvel Studios' talent spending after several high-profile, expensive castings in recent projects. Before the SAG-AFTRA strike began in July 2023, the studio held screen tests for Reed with several actors, including Christopher Abbott and Jamie Dornan, though these tests reportedly did not go very well. An offer was made to Jake Gyllenhaal, who had previously portrayed Mysterio in Spider-Man: Far From Home, but he also requested a salary that Marvel deemed too high. As the casting search continued, Marvel Studios began considering non-white actors for Reed Richards, and Pedro Pascal emerged as a strong candidate, though he would not engage in formal negotiations during the actors' strike. In August 2023, Ebon Moss-Bachrach was offered the role of Ben Grimm, also known as The Thing. Moss-Bachrach had previously appeared in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as David Lieberman in the first season of the Punisher television series. Marvel Studios was particularly committed to casting a Jewish actor for this role, honoring the character's Jewish heritage from the comics, which had not been reflected in previous film adaptations where the character had been portrayed by non-Jewish actors. The studio was also looking at Vanessa Kirby and Joseph Quinn to portray Sue Storm and her brother Johnny Storm. Nicholas Galitzine was rumored to be in conversations for the Johnny Storm role as well. For the villain Galactus, Marvel Studios initially sought a major Latino actor, with Javier Bardem being eyed for the part after Antonio Banderas had been linked to the character, though Bardem had potential scheduling conflicts with the racing film F1. During the October 2023 timeframe, while still amid the labor disputes, Shackman confirmed plans to start filming in early 2024 at Pinewood Studios in England. He noted that the cast would be announced once the SAG-AFTRA strike concluded. During the strikes, The crew took advantage of the downtime to work on production design and conduct early tests of the visual effects for the team's superhuman abilities. Key crew members were brought aboard during this period, including production designer Kazra Farahani, who had worked on the Marvel series Loki, and costume designer Alexandra Byrne, who had designed costumes for several previous MCU films. The costume design for the Fantastic Four took inspiration from the comics, specifically the pale blue uniforms with white necklines that were introduced in Fantastic Four Volume 1, Issue 256 from 1983. These designs also bore similarity to the costumes worn in Roger Corman's unreleased Fantastic Four film from 1994, creating a visual link to an earlier, albeit never officially released, adaptation of the characters. Following the conclusion of the actors' strike in November 2023, Pedro Pascal formally entered negotiations to portray Reed Richards, working to align the Fantastic Four filming schedule with his other professional commitments. According to Shackman, finding the right actor for Reed Richards proved to be the most difficult casting challenge of the entire project. Bockrack was officially the first actor cast in the film. Joseph Quinn, during the production of Gladiator 2 alongside Pascal, sought advice about the Fantastic Four from his co-star, not yet knowing that Pascal was in talks to play the team's leader. For Pascal, taking on the role of Reed Richards represented a significant shift in his career plans. The actor admitted that he had not anticipated taking on such a major franchise role, saying the film changed his plans in a very sudden way. The opportunity to work with Shackman and be part of Marvel's first family ultimately proved too compelling to resist. In January 2024, Snyder reported that filming had been delayed from its originally planned start date, now projected to begin sometime between July and September. This delay had a ripple effect on Pascal's other projects, causing him to exit his role in the film Weapons to accommodate the Fantastic Four schedule. The Valentine's Day announcement on February 14, 2024, became a major moment for the production. Marvel Studios released a specially designed Valentine's Day-themed announcement that confirmed the casting of Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, and Ebon Bockrack as Ben Grimm. The film was officially titled The Fantastic Four, and its release date was moved to July 25, 2025, swapping positions on the calendar with another MCU film, Thunderbolts. According to Feige, confirming the main cast represented 90% of the work needed to bring the project to fruition. The announcement's promotional artwork provided intriguing clues about the film's setting. The image incorporated the December 13, 1963, issue of Life magazine featuring Lyndon B. Johnson on the cover, clearly indicating that the story would be set in the 1960s. Pascal reinforced this period setting by sharing the promotional art on social media with references to Beatles songs from that era. The announcement also revealed the inclusion of H.E.R.B. that is, a robot companion to the Fantastic Four from the comics, signaling the film's embrace of the source material's more whimsical elements. Feige later confirmed that the film would indeed be a 1960s period piece, but with a crucial twist: it would be set in an alternate universe within the MCU's multiverse rather than in the main timeline. Specifically, the story takes place on Earth 828. Shackman described the aesthetic as a retro-future interpretation of the 1960s, part what audiences know from that era and part what they've never seen before. The director drew inspiration from the optimism of the space race and the era's aspirational visions of space travel that had been prevalent when the Fantastic Four comics were first created in the early 1960s. Shackman studied the entire run of Fantastic Four comics, from their original creation through to the present day, seeking to understand what had made the characters endure for over 6 decades. He took particular inspiration from Jonathan Hickman's acclaimed 2009 to 2011 run on the Fantastic Four comics, which provided guidance on how to approach the main characters' relationships and dynamics. The film incorporates the Future Foundation, a philanthropic organization from Hickman's run that would play a significant role in the movie's plot. The director's visual influences extended beyond comic books. Shackman cited Stanley Kubrick's 2001, A Space Odyssey as a major inspiration, along with the futuristic designs of industrial artist Sid Mead. Interestingly, Shackman also noted that his work on the long-running comedy series It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia helped inform his approach to the film's sense of playfulness, collaborative spirit, and willingness to embrace improvisation during production. In February 2024, Marvel Studios quietly hired Eric Pearson to polish the script. Pearson had developed a reputation within Marvel Studios for taking projects over the finish line, and his involvement suggested the screenplay was nearing completion. By April 2024, Julia Garner was cast as Shallabal, a gender-swap version of the Silver Surfer. In the comics, Shallabal is the love interest of Norrin Radd, the male Silver Surfer, and she becomes the Silver Surfer herself in the Earth X Limited series from 1999-2000. Several more actors joined the cast in May 2024. Paul Walter Hauser was cast as Harvey Elder, also known as the Mole Man, reportedly for a sequence at the beginning of the film. Hauser had previously worked with Shackman on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and initially had reservations about joining the Fantastic Four due to the poor reception of previous films in the franchise. However, the quality of the script, the talented cast, and the experienced crew ultimately convinced him to sign on. John Malkovich was cast as Ivan Kragoff, the Red Ghost, though his scenes would ultimately be cut from the final film. Malkovich had previously declined offers for other Marvel films because he felt the proposed compensation was not proportional to the work involved, but he chose to accept this role specifically to work with Shackman again after they had collaborated on the film Cut Bank in 2014. Ralph Ensign was cast as the voice of Galactus, the film's primary antagonist. Ensign had previously appeared in a minor role in Guardians of the Galaxy as the Ravager pilot. According to Snyder, Marvel chose Ensign for his voice acting abilities rather than pursuing another A-list actor like Javier Bardem, whose scheduling difficulties with other projects had made him unavailable. Natasha Lyonne also joined the cast during this period, though her specific role remained under wraps initially. Before filming began, the actors participated in 3 weeks of intensive rehearsals with Shackman and writer Josh Friedman. These rehearsals allowed the cast to work through the script collaboratively, helping to define their characters' relationships and understand how they would exist within the film's retro-futuristic 1960s setting. Pascal described the rehearsal process as approaching the material dramaturgically as one would a play, while Moss Bachrach noted that it gave the actors opportunities to share research and consult with real astronauts and scientists to ground their performances. At the end of June 2024, Fiji announced that filming would finally begin at the end of July. A few days of pre-filming occurred in late July before San Diego Comic-Con, capturing footage of specific set pieces including an astronaut preparation area, a scene of the Thing appearing as a contestant on a dating game show titled Let's Make a Match, and segments from a children's science program hosted by Reed Richards called Fantastic Science with Mr. Fantastic. At San Diego Comic-Con in July 2024, the film's final title was revealed as The Fantastic Four: First Steps. The subtitle referenced the film's themes of optimism and space exploration, though Shackman teased that it also had additional meanings that audiences would discover when they saw the film. This cryptic comment led to widespread speculation about what those additional meanings might be. Also, at Comic-Con, it was announced that the main cast would be reprising their roles in the upcoming MCU crossover films Avengers, Doomsday and Avengers: Secret Wars, establishing the Fantastic Four as central figures in the next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Perhaps the most stunning announcement at Comic-Con was the reveal that Robert Downey Jr., who had portrayed Tony Stark from 2008 to 2019, would be returning to the MCU as Victor Von Doom, Dr. Doom, in the Avengers films. Feige had wanted Downey to return and had been in discussions with the actor about portraying Doom for approximately a year before the announcement. Journalist Jeff Snyder reported that Dr. Doom would be introduced in a post-credits scene at the end of First Steps, setting up Downey's appearances in the subsequent Avengers films. However, Shackman maintained that Dr. Doom was not part of his film and therefore not part of his purview as director, though Feige later stated that the events of First Steps would lead directly into the story of Avengers. Doomsday. Filming principal photography officially commenced on July 30, 2024, at Pinewood Studios in Buckinghamshire, England. The production operated under the working title Blue Moon to maintain secrecy and minimize attention during location shooting. The film was shot specifically for IMAX presentation, with cinematographer Jess Hall returning from his work on WandaVision to collaborate with Shackman again. Shackman's vision for the film's visual style was explicitly inspired by Stanley Kubrick's approach to filmmaking in the 1960s. The director wanted the movie to look as if it had been made by Kubrick in 1965, including specific choices about camera lenses and the general methodology of filmmaking from that era. Second unit director of photography Tim Wooster even used his father's vintage 16mm film camera for certain sequences, adding an authentic period texture to specific scenes. The production emphasized practical sets and props wherever possible, eschewing excessive reliance on green screens and digital environments. This practical approach extended to several major set pieces that became central to the film's visual identity. The Fantastic Four's home, the Baxter Building penthouse, was constructed as a massive two-story contiguous set. The design was inspired by the cozy mid-century modern California homes of the 1960s, creating a living space that felt both futuristic and warmly domestic. Reed Richards' laboratory was divided into 3 distinct color-coded sections, each serving a different purpose. The Red Room was designed for research and inventions, filled with scientific equipment and experimental technology. The Yellow Room contained blackboards and thinking spaces where Reed could work through complex theoretical problems. The Blue Room housed communications equipment for monitoring and staying connected with the outside world. The lab's overall aesthetic drew heavily from 2001, A Space Odyssey, creating a sleek, retro-futuristic environment that felt both period-appropriate and visually striking. One of the most elaborate practical sets was a fictionalized version of New York's Yancey Street, an important location from the Fantastic Four comics closely associated with Ben Grimm. The production design team meticulously researched how Jewish neighborhoods in New York City looked during Jack Kirby's childhood, incorporating kosher grocery stores, delis, and a synagogue to create an authentic environment that honored the thing's Jewish heritage and Kirby's personal history. The production's commitment to practical construction reached its apex with the Times Square set, which utilized Pinewood Studios' entire backlot. This massive undertaking recreated the iconic New York location as it might have appeared in an alternate 1960s reality, complete with period-appropriate signage, vehicles, and architectural details filtered through the film's retro-futuristic aesthetic. The practical prop work extended to several key elements of the Fantastic Four's world. A 14-foot scale model of the team's spaceship. Post-production included a period of additional photography, which is standard practice for major studio films of this scale. One significant addition during this phase was a sequence depicting Shalla Ball's backstory. According to Shackman, the Silver Surfer character's role had evolved considerably throughout the writing process, and during post-production, the director came to feel that her backstory was essential to understanding her character's motivation and how it reflected the film's broader themes. The added sequence shows how Shalla Ball chose to become Galactus's herald to save her home planet and family, a sacrifice that mirrors the choices the Fantastic Four face in the main narrative. The screenplay's final credits were determined through arbitration with the Writers Guild of America, resulting in the screenplay being attributed to Josh Friedman, Eric Pearson, Jeff Kaplan, and Ian Springer, with the story credited to Pearson, Kaplan, Springer, and Cat Wood. Pearson's contributions during his polishing phase proved substantial, including relocating the birth of Franklin Richards from the beginning of the film to the middle, during the team's escape from Galactus in space. This change increased the dramatic tension and made the sequence more emotionally resonant. Pearson also revised the climactic battle sequence, moving the final confrontation with Galactus from space to Earth. This change allowed the film to better showcase Galactus's massive scale against familiar terrestrial landmarks, emphasizing the threat he posed to humanity. Additionally, Pearson developed the subplot of Johnny Storm researching and eventually deciphering Shalla Ball's native language, creating a connection between Johnny and the Silver Surfer that would prove crucial to the film's resolution. In Pearson's drafts, There were more overtly flirtatious moments between Johnny and Shalla than appeared in the final cut, though the mutual respect and understanding between the characters remained central to their dynamic. One of the most difficult decisions made during post-production involved cutting John Malkovich's performance as the Red Ghost. Shackman later described this as a heartbreaking decision. The Red Ghost had originally been conceived as part of an opening montage chronicling the Fantastic Four's early adventures as superheroes, which would have included a battle against Red Ghost and his super apes. Later in this film, Red Ghost was meant to return during the climactic sequence, where he would have been responsible for destroying Reed Richards' teleportation bridges. However, during the editing process, Shackman concluded that it made more narrative sense for Shalla to destroy the bridges, keeping the focus on the primary antagonist the audience had been spending the most time with throughout the film. The director praised Malkovich's performance and expressed regret about cutting his scenes, but explained that numerous sequences had to be trimmed to properly balance the introduction of the Fantastic Four as both individuals and a team, establish the unique world they inhabited, and manage the various villains appearing in the story. Although Malkovich's live-action scenes were removed, a cartoon version of the Red Ghost makes a brief appearance in a post-credits scene as part of an in-universe Fantastic Four animated series. This animated segment also features other classic Fantastic Four villains including Diablo, Dragon Man, the Mad Thinker, the Puppet Master, and the Wizard, providing Easter eggs for longtime comic book fans while suggesting a rich history of adventures that occurred off-screen. The post-production process also involved revealing previously undisclosed casting details. Infant actress Ada Scott was confirmed as portraying Franklin Richards, while Paul Walter Hauser's role was officially identified as Harvey Elder, the Mole Man. Sarah Niles' character was named as Lynn Nichols, and Natasha Lyon was revealed to be playing Rachel Rosman. Several commentators noted that the name Rachel Rosman appeared to be a tribute to Rosalind Draz Goldstein, the wife of Fantastic Four co-creator Jack Kirby, honoring her influence on the comics and her support of her husband's work. A particularly fan-pleasing element revealed during post-production was the inclusion of the four actors who had portrayed the Fantastic Four in Roger Corman's unreleased 1994 film. Alex Hyde White, Rebecca Staub, Jay Underwood, and Michael Bailey Smith all make cameo appearances throughout the film in various roles. Hyde White and Staub appear as television journalists. Underwood and Smith portray power plant workers who salute Johnny Storm, and all four appear together as civilians thanking the Fantastic Four for their heroism. The film's mid-credits scene introducing Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom was actually filmed by Anthony and Joe Russo, the directors of the upcoming Avengers: Doomsday. This cross-production collaboration ensured continuity between the films and allowed the Russos to establish their interpretation of Dr. Doom while setting up plot threads that would continue into their film. According to Shackman, the Russos visited the sets of First Steps during production, watched scenes from the film, and worked closely with his team to ensure they understood the Fantastic Four characters deeply so they could treat them well and do right by them in Avengers: Doomsday. The film concludes with the quote from Jack Kirby, honoring the co-creators' vision and contributions to the Fantastic Four mythos. The end credits also reveal that the universe designation of Earth 828 was chosen as a tribute to Kirby's birthday, August 28, 1917. Finally, the film is dedicated to two people who did not live to see its completion: producer Jamie Christopher, who died during pre-production, and Inez Shackman, the director's mother. Music: the musical score for the Fantastic Four, First Steps was composed by Michael Giacchino, who had previously scored numerous MCU projects and established himself as one of contemporary cinema's most accomplished composers. Giacchino's involvement was announced in July 2024, and his themes for both the Fantastic Four and Galactus were previewed during an elaborate drone show at San Diego Comic-Con that month, providing fans with their first taste of the film's musical identity. The main Fantastic Four theme was performed in its entirety at Disney's D23 convention in August 2024 during a Music of Marvel Studios panel that Giacchino moderated. The theme was performed again at the Hollywood Bowl later that month as part of Marvel Studios' Infinity Saga concert experience. Micro of the Rap described the theme as having a jaunty vibe that blended a dreamy sense with future-looking heroic optimism, incorporating elements that evoked the sounds audiences might expect from a film featuring a space launch. He compared it to the playful, adventurous score Giacchino had composed for the first Ant-Man film. On June 5, 2025, the main Fantastic Four theme was released as a digital download single from Hollywood Records and Marvel Music, making it available to fans ahead of the film's premiere. A physical 7-inch vinyl release followed on July 25, 2025, paired with another track titled Let Us Be Devoured, written and performed by Andrea Datzman. Giacchino's complete score was released digitally on July 18, 2025, allowing They Have Arrived. After years of teases, casting rumors, and multiverse detours, A Fantastic Four: First Steps brings Marvel's first family into the MCU proper with a surprising mix of retro flair, cosmic queerness, and heartfelt family drama. You know them: Reed Richards, Pedro Pascal, Sue Storm, Vanessa Kirby, Johnny Storm, Joseph Quinn, and Ben Grimm. Ebon Moss-Bachrach take their first steps into a new iteration, one that leans harder into the family dynamic that has defined them for decades, one that, crucially, quietly introduces new threats along the way. Of course, the Fantastic Four have taken a long, bumpy road to reach this moment. After the 2015 disaster, hilariously monikered Dave Fantastic, Fox scrambled to retool the franchise, considering a kid-friendly reboot inspired by The Incredibles. They were also working on a Doctor Doom solo film from Legion's Noah Hawley. But before those ideas could materialize, the Disney-Fox merger returned the rights to Marvel. Nearly a decade later, First Steps arrives not just as a reboot, but as a redemption arc. So, how do those first steps fare? Are they solid, or still wiggly-wobbly? I herald his beginning, set in an alternate reality, far removed from MCU mainstays like the Avengers or the Snap. The Fantastic Four: First Steps doesn't dwell on Infinity Stones or multiversal hangovers. Instead, much like the recent Superman, the film plunges us into a brand new world, one that's unapologetically stylized. Picture this: retro-futuristic Jetsons vibes, flying cars, a chrome-drenched Manhattan skyline, and a generous helping of mid-century charm soaked in Jack Kirby energy. Clearly, the space race shaped this version of Earth. Retro brand references and vintage vehicles dot the landscape. Even the MetLife building gets a cheeky Pan Am-style makeover. From the very beginning, it's clear how much love went into portraying Marvel's first family, both in-universe and behind the scenes. A high-energy montage shows the Fantastic Four in action, battling classic villains who've never made it to the big screen: Giganto, Red Ghost, Mole Man. It's a greatest hits parade for longtime fans and a clear signal that First Steps embraces the team's weird, pulpy roots. In many ways, it recalls The Incredibles, especially how that film opens with nostalgic heroics. The tone here feels similar, and that's a very good thing. The opening montage celebrates the Fantastic Four not as outcasts, but as beloved icons in their prime. These aren't rookies still figuring things out. This team already works like a well-oiled machine. The rapport, rhythm, and trust come through in every interaction. They've clearly been through battles and triumphs together. And yes, it's just plain fun to see the thing play with kids on the sidewalk, handing out high fives and lifting cars, instead of being reduced to a tragic, brooding monster. Sure, that might give him less depth in the Chiklis iteration, but that does not mean that part of him isn't forgotten. It's just that he's lived with it and society has accepted him better. Ben's presence feels more like an old-school uncle. He's calm, grounded, and perceptive. He picks up on tension and gives the kind of advice only a big brother could offer. Ebon Moss-Bachrach brings charm to the role with a performance and voice that would make Aunt Petunia proud. Joseph Quinn's Johnny blazes onto the screen with hyperactive flair. Sure, he's still a hothead and full of himself, but like Ben, he exudes fun uncle energy. the kind who roasts you at dinner but still wins everyone over with charm. Meanwhile, Reed and Sue's relationship anchors this version of the team. Vanessa Kirby and Pedro Pascal bring a strong, parental energy that genuinely changes everything. Sue isn't just the heart of the team, she's the compass. Brilliant, composed, protective, and already carrying the weight of the world before the baby even arrives. Notably, we also see her rise into a leadership role as the face of the future foundation. Reed, on the other hand, remains the brilliant but distracted mind, often lost in calculations or tinkering with gadgets. He ropes Herbie, their robot companion, into tasks involving the baby, much to Sue's irritation. Their dynamic is warm but laced with the tension of impending parenthood, subtle, grounded, and deeply human beneath the cosmic chaos. Naturally, the family dynamic runs through every part of the film, not just in dramatic set pieces, but through dinners, cooking banter, and hushed lab conversations. These people care about each other. That connection matters. I herald your end. However, that jolly feeling of the first act is soon torn apart when a visitor descends upon Earth. Our journey shifts tone, becoming more grave. The brightness of discovery and family is now overshadowed by the looming specter of annihilation. The Silver Surfer, Julia Garner, radiant in chrome, arrives in Times Square, not to attack, but to warn. Her ghostly presence delivers a dire message: Galactus is coming. The devourer of worlds is en route, and this beautiful, hopeful planet is doomed. Yet the looming threat of Galactus doesn't break the team. These heroes don't just defend, they explore, which is what we want to see. One of the core essences of the team is that they are space forgers. They find the unknown. It brings them to weird places, and that's exactly what the previous iterations lacked. And so, they push forward. They devise a plan. They aim to meet Galactus head-on, not with force, but with reason, with empathy, boldness, and science. They try to negotiate anything to stop Earth from being consumed. But then, what Galactus demands in return, a broken bar, is too much. The film refuses to offer easy answers. This is a classic trolley problem, delivered on a cosmic scale. The choices weigh heavily. What is the price of saving Earth? What or who do you sacrifice? It's this moral weight that elevates First Steps. The characters become more than superheroes. They become people grappling with the unthinkable. Thunderbolts explored similar emotional terrain, difficult choices, gray morality, and First Steps follows suit. We like that. We like it when Marvel movies trust us with the hard stuff, when they know spectacle alone isn't enough. It's the soul that sticks. Director Nate Shackman clearly understands this. He's no MCU newbie, having directed all 9 episodes of WandaVision. That series was celebrated for its stylistic ambition and emotional depth, a heartwarming and ultimately tragic tale about grief, love, and identity. It too was about family, albeit a fabricated one, but a superhero domestic drama nonetheless. That same sensibility extends to The Fantastic Four, First Steps, where Shackman once again balances emotional nuance with genre spectacle. Only this time, the family isn't imaginary, and the world is watching. He understands that this family of 4 has a lot riding on their shoulders. Cosmic threats, moral quandaries, the sheer weight of expectation all loom large. Yet Shackman's direction leans into what keeps them together. He gives space for quiet moments amidst the chaos, building tension constantly. There's a standout sequence in the second act that reminds us, albeit not quite as strongly, of A Quiet Place. It's tense, perilous, and emotionally charged. Everyone, especially Vanessa and Pedro, fires on all cylinders, bringing nuance to a nail-biting moment in the sci-fi backdrop. It's terrific. Each act of First Steps carries a defining line that encapsulates its emotional shift. Act 1, the world is about to change. Signaling wonder and excitement. Act 2, we will protect you. At the moment when exploration becomes responsibility. Act 3, I don't know. A rare, vulnerable confession from Reed, showing that even geniuses can be lost. These lines are not just spoken, they reflect a deeper theme, that heroism isn't about having all the answers. It's about what you do when there aren't any. The film's main villain is utilized to great effect, and how far we've come from that blasphemous cloud. In A First Steps, the Devourer of Worlds is rendered with the mythic weight fans have long craved, towering, ancient, and eerily composed. He's not a force of nature, he is nature. Intelligent, terrifying, his presence isn't just a plot device, it's an existential reckoning. And thank the cosmos, he has a face. Visually, Galactus is awe-inspiring. The film delays his full reveal, instead building tension with gravitational shifts, celestial warnings, and haunting stillness. When he finally emerges, it's operatic, a living mural stretched across space. Every shot feels loaded with dread and beauty. He's the Devourer and he's worthy to be called that. Ralph Ineson's voice, perfect, gravelly, commanding, ancient as baritone, carries the weight of countless consumed worlds. Speaking of visual effects, they absolutely cooked with this. From planetary destruction to dimension-hopping madness, every set piece feels pulled from a sci-fi artist's sketchpad. The inspirations are clear: Interstellar, Star Wars, and, of course, classic Jack Kirby cosmic chaos. And while some of it may echo familiar territory, they execute it with style. It blends awe with abstraction, and the kind of film you want to pause just to admire every frame. Galactus alone, IMAX-worthy. If we had one gripe, it's with Shayla Ball. Her arc, teased and developed in the background, is resolved too quickly. A subplot that deserved more impact gets swept aside a little too easily. Seriously, we don't have many complaints, other than this fact that we want more. This film feels like the start of something vast, cosmic, and emotionally rich. And while it does stand on its own, you can sense that this is just the first chapter. Some threads are deliberately left dangling, relationships just at their start, and a universe of possibilities waiting beyond the stars. It's not a flaw, really, just a testament to how much this story deserves to be expanded. And that's all. So, is this the A Fantastic Four film we've been waiting for? Absolutely. It's bright, quirky, and unabashedly sci-fi, which is what the core essence of the team has been for years. The film leans into the team's pulpy, cosmic roots with confidence, embracing time travel, alternate dimensions, and existential threats. It doesn't lose sight of the human heart at its core. As of now, we're excited to see what comes next for the first family in A Avengers: Doomsday. This self-contained story is going to mash together with the main universe next year. Considering how this isn't just about powers, it's about family, we sure think Dominic Toretto would be giggling in his Dodge Charger from afar. The Fantastic Four is currently having its first steps in cinemas. Say that again. The review: The Fantastic Four, First Steps. Marvel's Fantastic Four, First Steps is a bold, eccentric, and refreshingly heartfelt reboot that finally brings the iconic team into the MCU with style. Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, and Ebon Moss-Bachrach shine as a lovable unit of misfits thrust into cosmic chaos. With gorgeous cinematic visual effects, pulpy sci-fi storytelling, and a strong emotional core, this isn't just a new chapter, it's a promising first step. The hour has grown late, and the sun's drawn low. Such ominous tidings definitely apply to the denizens of Earth in the Fantastic Four, First Steps. For it is in this movie that Galactus, the Devourer of Worlds, has come. However, it also applies to many longtime Marvel Comics fans in the audience. Despite 4 previous movies, countless cartoon shows, and a smattering of video game adaptations to boot, Marvel's first family and the crown jewels in Jack Kirby and Stan Lee's collaboration have never transferred smoothly to another medium. And while it's not been overtly stated, First Steps implicitly feels like the chance. As the health of the superhero genre comes into question, this might very well be a final roll of the dice to get these icons right. So if your chief concern is seeing Marvel's Fab Four fully realized, take a breath and rest easy. Director Nate Shackman, a legion of screenwriters, and producer Kevin Feige are aware of the solemnity of the task in front of them, and as is often Marvel Studios' last fallback, the company maintains a canny knack for distilling the spirit of their characters to a visual medium. They do it again here with the kind of seeming ease which eludes or bedevils other studios. Here's looking at you, 20th Century Fox. It is thus a relief to say that Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Bet are all faithfully introduced to the MCU sandbox. albeit in a different corner of the multiverse from all the other movies, and most of them are spectacularly well cast too. Joseph Quinn captures the self-assured swagger of the Human Torch without turning him into a narcissist or sexual harassment lawsuit waiting to happen. A la Chris Evans' version from 2005. Ebon Moss-Bachrach's voice exudes the avuncular warmth and gregariousness of the bag of rocks they call the Thing, and most refreshingly Vanessa Kirby at last instills in a cinematic Sue Storm her ferocious intelligence and an even fiercer maternal quality that's largely absent in the superhero genre. If you strictly yearn to see Kirby's band of explorers at last with their sails set, and free from the ropes and constraint of shore, the Fantastic Four: First Steps fulfills the dream of launching them toward the waves, even if only insofar as to still see the safety of land on the horizon. This is a Marvel movie, remember, and the studio never drifts too far from the security of bedrock formula. As an actual narrative film, though, First Steps is not entirely a pleasure cruise. It is even ironically the second superhero movie this month to begin in medias res, deliberately starting after a skip to origin story, and with a mountain of exposition to surmount. Like James Gunn's Superman, First Steps wants to be a zippy bit of Silver Age comics triumphalism, but at the same time it hurriedly seeks to redeem one of the greatest stories ever told in a superhero magazine, Kirby and Lee's Galactus trilogy from 1966. This impulse to be both a fresh beginning, like the title says, as well as one of the most somber Kirby tales about Marvel's happy heroes staring down the end of days, makes First Steps a movie divided against itself. That does not mean either side of the narrative doesn't work, they just make for curious bedfellows. The latter aspect of this setup is the one you've likely seen in the marketing. In the alternate reality of Earth 828, they're still partying like it's 1962 and Kennedy's Camelot is never going to end. In fact, because the Fantastic Four got slammed with cosmic rays some time ago and came back supercharged, things have only gotten groovier. Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards has invented flying cars. They have an adorable robot helper named H.T.R.B. that is in the Baxter Building, and as far as pop culture is concerned, this foursome is bigger than the Beatles. The way First Steps tells it, they might even be the only things popping in this alternative 1960s. At this height of such success, the movie also opens on the loveliest of realizations for Reed and Sue. She is pregnant, and the test came back positive just in time to tell her little brother Johnny and everyone's surrogate big bro, Ben Grimm, at Sunday dinner. Alas, the good vibes are to be brief and fleeting. For no sooner have the Fantastic Four announced to the world that they have a prospective fifth member in the offing than a sleek, silver harbinger of doom, or the naked space girl as Johnny enthuses, descends from the heavens to announce the end is nigh. The Silver Surfer, Julia Garner, has come to herald that Galactus will soon be here, a broken bar eventually. And with his approach, First Steps is going to become a much different movie. The sense of foreboding and inescapable doom that pervades the last two-thirds of the movie clash don't only end aesthetically with the faint A60s optimism and retrofuturism that First Steps strives for in its first act. Yet this is not wholly a problem. I would even argue the last two acts are the most coherent and focused an MCU movie has been in a number of years, not least of all because Galactus is a genuinely menacing villain, particularly in his first scene, which occurs after the Fantastic Four travel to space to get a glimpse of the big guy for themselves, portrayed by Ralph Ineson with that wonderful Yorkshire accent to use the haunting effect in The Witch and the Green Knight. Galactus carries immense presence. Part of that is due to some cagey framing by Shackman, who uses light, shadow, and perspective to make this unjolly giant tower over the screen. He's hidden enough in darkness to subdue the more outrageous aspects of his faithfully rendered purple Kirby designs, but it's Inson's severity and purring indifference that makes him truly formidable. His looming menace, and Garner's ice-cold interpretation of Silver Surfer's faint pangs of empathy, as she says with flickering affection at one point, "Go die with your," gives First Steps a sense of stakes and emotional dread that's largely eluded the MCU since the days of Thanos, or at least Willem Dafoe getting to mug it up again in Spider-Man: No Way Home. However, First Steps could never quite convinces one that this is a grand introduction for Marvel's first family. The Galactus saga gives the movie that Shackman made clarity and a sense of narrative propulsion. It's also refreshingly self-contained, but only because so much of the movie's first act is discombobulated as it strains to impress in shorthand all the YA-copyright chic fun we missed out on before the story proper starts. There is a newsreel introduction that includes a glorified clip reel of the Fantastic Four's greatest hits, including the delightful inference of a mole-man adventure in Subterranea. But we don't really get to see or join in on the Fantastic Four having fun other than a handful of very nice family dinner sequences, nor do we get to live in their world wherein the A60s setting feels like anything other than a thin veneer of window dressing while our heroes wander around otherwise empty, grey-wash backlots. Yes, there is a nice Times Square set with vintage billboards, and all the male extras are wearing fedoras and trench coats, but there is nary an immersive A60s touchstone or needle drop. To put it another way, X-Men First Class did a lot more to evoke some of the pop culture whiz-bang joy of this Silver Age setting 14 years ago. Most of these elements feel skimmed over, because the film needs to get to Galactus and a storyline that works very well, but which makes for an oddly somber meet-cute with who are clearly meant to be the MCU's most fun-loving characters going forward. But our central quartet still works with shimmering charisma. The casting is uniformly good to great, with the usually sublime Pascal being the only one who doesn't quite fully inhabit his archetype. Pascal still brings a sense of deep affection and concern opposite the other three, but not necessarily the father-knows-best certitude that the story seems to demand. Also, no fault to Pascal, but it's strange how no live-action Fantastic Four filmmaker has figured out a way to use Mr. Fantastic's stretchy powers half as dazzlingly as Brad Bird's animated The Incredibles from more than 20 years ago. Nonetheless, Pascal, Kirby, Quinn, and Moss Bachrick convey a deeply committed family unit who are so you cannot help but be charmed by their bantering and playfulness, and concerned when their domestic bliss is pointedly and existentially threatened by the hungry giant stomping around Midtown like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Spending time keeping up with the Richards and Storms makes for a lovely evening. It's just that one might wish our first get-together wasn't quite so morose. The Fantastic Four First Steps is in theaters on Friday, July 25th. On Earth 828, world-famous superheroes the Fantastic Four are expecting a new family member while taking on their greatest foe yet, Galactus, Devourer of Worlds. Despite the insistence of this latest Fantastic Four film subtitle, it arrives carrying a distinct hint of DA-copyright Yahoo, not least because 2007's so-so sequel Rise of the Silver Surfer covered the very same Earth-threatening ground, with the same, very big bad. But, just as you might worry how yet another Fantastic Four could serve up anything close to fresh, you might also take heart in the relieving fact that fourth time, okay, fifth if you count the never-released Roger Corman-produced movie, is a charm. This is down to two factors, the casting and the world-building. One of Marvel Studios' strengths is finding the best people for the roles. After all, they know all these long-storied comic book characters better than anyone else, and can sniff out the essence in actors that might at first not seem obvious to everyone else. So, please welcome to the MCU, Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, a socially awkward, softly-spoken brainiac who's most comfortable using his bendy stretchy powers to reach the furthest corners of his giant chalkboard while sciencing shit out. Former Princess Margaret Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, aka Mrs. Richards, whose mother Bear Energy finally confirms the Invisible Woman as the quartet's most powerful member. Joseph Fayette Munson Quinn as Johnny Storm, thankfully freed from the cocksure hothead stereotype, though he does now have a thing for naked space women, specifically Julia Garner's Frosty Silver Surfer, and the Bear's Ebon Moss Bachrick as the orange Rocky Ben Grimm, unburdened of the self-loathing that's shaded previous things, allowing his orange Rocky heart to shine, brims with sincerity, presenting a heroic squad committed to protecting the Earth. They are, it must be said, a chemistry test-passing quartet, and it is a smart move to join them 4 years into their superheroic career. The Cosmic Turbulence origin story is skipped over via TV newsreels, so we join them as a tight, settled, fame-comfortable family unit which has more or less solved all the local crime problems. Just before Megaphone Galactus, Ralph Inson, moves into orbit, rather like a certain other blue-suited superhero who returned to our screens this summer, they are Breeze.